everybody. You're welcome to the Women Who Code podcast. I am Faith Pueneh, and I am a front-end developer at CAD Consulting Limited, and I'm also a lead at the Women Who Code front-end track. And today we have Monica Puerto, an analytics associate manager at Accenture Federal Services, and we're going to be talking about navigating a heavily white-dominated field as a Latina in STEM and data science. So you're welcome, Monica.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm fine. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your career? I'm really curious. What actually drew you to become a data scientist?
Yeah, so I actually stumbled into it. I started off my major as a journalism. I actually wrote for my school newspaper and I really liked it. But my dad encouraged me to go into business, and with immigrant child complex, I subjected. Even though now I still write, like technically, I do a lot of technical writing.
Wow.
Yeah. And I started doing finance, but I didn't really love the classes. I wanted something a little bit more, no offense to anyone who loves finance out there, more interesting. So my guidance counselor suggested marketing to me. And I feel like back then there was no woman who code when I did college, sadly. It was only, a little 14 years ago. And I think I would have really loved someone to tell me, hey, you love statistics, like you actually like math, maybe you should do computer science or information systems. But I think like as a woman, my guidance counselor was like, oh, marketing, like you'll like that. Oh. And she was semi-right in the sense like there were some quantitative aspects of that. I'm not diminishing that. There's definitely like market research and business development and marketing analytics, and I really enjoyed that. But I started falling into data science because my Excel kept crashing. I was dealing with a lot of data. So I started learning Python, and Python can handle a lot more data and number crunching. So I started learning how to code, and I took a boot camp, and that kind of introduced me into data science. So there was kind of a little bit stumbling into it, but I really enjoyed the boot camp.
Okay, wow, that's nice. Awesome. That's an awesome journey. I know you have a master's. So I would love to know why and how did you decide to pursue your master's?
Yeah, it took me a while. Which was interesting going back to school, after probably like 10 years of work experience. And like I said, I took a boot camp, but it didn't really show me everything, right? Boot camp's supposed to be short, 6 to like 8 weeks. And it's a very good like introduction. But data science is so broad and also very complex, right? Because it is based off of like, math and stats, which to be honest, like I liked it, but it wasn't like my strong suit. So I wanted to understand a little bit more about the intricacies of like the algorithms. And what really pushed me was, I don't know if you've ever read Weapons of Math Destruction by Cathy O'Neill.
No.
I highly recommend
I have to go and read it. Yes, I will have to know.
Yeah, I highly recommend it because it's not very math heavy, right? It talks about how algorithms are everywhere. And she was a financial consultant, and she talked about how the models, made that stock market crash back in like 2011, and how we heavily have relied on models since then. And now that I see, and there's this whole sector of what we call explainability in algorithms. So trying to understand like what the algorithm is doing, because at the end of the day, it's a black box, especially with like neural networks, right? That just keep getting bigger and bigger. But my master's help, understand the foundations of that. So I really wanted to understand how the black box is working, because it's really important when these algorithms are making decisions for us now, like cars who are driving, by themselves, and who gets a loan or not, or who can get out of prison. So there's a lot of models that touch like every part of our lives, and I really do see equity gap. So kind of like climate change, there are people who are paying the price that are not the ones that are making these algorithms. So I feel like I got into that because I want to understand more and make sure that doesn't happen, at least in my work.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So statistics shows that 36% of computer related jobs are held by women. Just 26. Just 26. That's like sad for me. And that number drops 2%
drastically.
Oh, when you're talking about Hispanic women. And that gets me to wonder, okay, so like what has been your experience? I know you have a whole lot of experience, the good, the bad, the ugly experience in tech. We all do. So what has been your experience in tech?
So it started off good, and I didn't realize that I was in tech. Back I was doing just data analytics, but now I understand that tech is much more than just software engineers with hoodies and like heads down. Like it's so much more, and people and the people participating in that is so much more diverse and can be more diverse, right? So my first boss was actually a Latina woman, but I was in Miami, so maybe that's the higher chance of that happening, I guess. But I was so thankful for that because I learned a lot of lessons from her. And one of them, was make sure that the company's investing in you. Like, don't burn yourself out for someone who doesn't have stake in you. And I feel like that's why I see a lot of high turnover in tech. People leave for better paying jobs, growth, recognition, better work-life balance. And I definitely, so that's the good. And the bad was, I mean, I definitely have witnessed, data boys clubs where I was the only woman, and like I felt small and no one really like cared to ask my opinion and like my contribution. And so I left that place. And I was happy to see that there are areas in tech that don't look like that. And my next job was more diverse, and I was definitely more welcomed and appreciated. So,
Wow, that's awesome.
yeah.
And while I'm on this journey, have you found other Latin women having same experience like you?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen in terms of the bad, I have seen, women being dismissed or not taken seriously, or they say something and then it's not actioned on until a man says it. But I also have seen, the opposite. I have seen more allies, especially in like my position. Like I do see the people, who advocate for us to have a seat at the table and like care about our ideas and like vouch for us. And I don't see, like we said, 2% of Latinas are in data science or in computing. And that makes me sad, but I have seen a lot more people of color in tech than when I started like 10 years ago. And that makes me really extremely happy. Like Black women, Black girls who code, women who code. So that's all making a difference.
Yeah, yeah. That's really awesome. And I'm really happy about that. You just see the growth in tech lately. And also, I feel really privileged beating you because you've
Me
grown
too.
this. And I know you have a whole lot of challenges on this journey. You've had like challenge in hardships and all that, but you're still here. You're growing stronger. I mean, you're an associate manager. Oh, I'm really, really glad to meet you. So I we need to know what are some of the hardships you have been able to overcome on this journey.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest ones that I had to learn was that that the patriarchy kind of hurts us all. And I see
Oh,
like some women kind of like emulating that because I feel like we've been taught that model and that model is wrong. And in one instance was when I was an analyst, another woman analyst came in, and so she was like the second woman analyst. And I have been working with this set of data and problems and analyzing them for a while. And she kind of came to me, and I subject matter transferred. I wanted to share what I knew and share, my knowledge. And in the end, after a couple of months, like, she just started getting kind of work that was that was used to be assigned to me in the past. And she had a PhD and I had a bachelor's at the time. And I just felt like that was an opportunity for us to grow together. So instead of kind of like going our separate ways, I'm very conscious of that. And I don't fault her, because I feel like maybe that's just kind of like some women feel like they have to stand out because it's already cutthroat for us enough at times that, they have to prove their worth, and they don't and they shouldn't have to. So I've learned from her mistake, even though probably not malicious, that I always try to be inclusive and I work with others, no matter what level, because at the end, like, we don't get better for hoarding knowledge or skill sets from each other.
Yeah. Well, I just got the key point from what you just said, and trying to be inclusive. And that's really nice, because when you're working with a whole lot of people, you just need to carry everybody together, carry everybody along, and it's really awesome. So that has to lead me to another question I really need to ask you. As a leader, I know you're an associate manager, and then I know you are leading a whole lot of persons. So what are your leadership experience? What has it been? What has it been like for you?
Also, like, good and bad. So it's getting better though. I do see a lot of like buzzwords, right, with D&I, right, that they say like, oh, we care about diversity, equity, and inclusion. But they leave it to the people of the company. And at least like in my company, I see it's tied to our bonus, which is really good. That you should be like rewarding people who are also working on that, and not just like leaving it on their own free time. And at least in my company, this press release they just sent out, in 2021, they just promoted 24% of the women. And then this year they increased it to 37%. So like, there are changes, and I do see companies publishing, their makeup of their teams as much as they can to not, for PII concerns, let's say, if it's like a small group of it's a smaller company. So I do see companies publishing, I think like Airbnb like publishes it on their website. And I see other companies modeling that they're being transparent, right? How many women are they hiring? How many people of color are they hiring? Like, how diverse is their company?
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. All right. So, what gives you the strength to actually persevere, to overcome all these challenges? What actually gives you that drive and strength to persevere?
I think it's seeing that there is change. I wish it was faster, right? Like, I feel like we're on iPhone 14 and putting like billionaires into space. But I do see changes, like even politically, the last midterm, there are more women in Congress now than ever before. So women like Stacey Abrams gives me hope. And in the tech area, like Dr. Lee from Stanford, who has just pioneered computer vision. The CEOs of Women Who Code, Girls Who Code, Black Girls Who Code, the Algorithmic Justice League, who is spearheaded by women as well. Teachers at my grad school, the female leadership at my company, my Latina friends who I grew up with, my mom, my sister, like basically strong women, you all around, like representation. And I just want to shout out, to the Women Who Code community, because like the DC chapter is very active. And that really propelled me to like have some confidence early on in my career.
Oh, that's good. That's awesome. And how do you think tech can do better when we're talking about DEI and representation? What do you think they're going to do differently?
I think, like I said earlier, take it seriously by measuring it, but also making it as important as a revenue goal. I think there's a McKinsey study that cited that there's a positive correlation to the more diverse the company, the more profitable they are. And even though, like, regardless of profit, like, it's just the right thing to do. So, like, taking it seriously, make it a KPI, key performance indicator. And outside of that, of the tech space, I think universities also have a major contribution, and they might not think of it as much because, you know, STEM occupations are available and increasing. And there is a study that conducted by the Congress Joint Economic Committee that there's not enough students to meet that demand. And I haven't done the study, so take this with a grain of salt, but I really do feel that people, like teachers at universities, are not as, you know, diverse. Like, I think it really does make a difference to students if the person teaching looks like them. So, and the reason why I think it's because you need a PhD to teach, right? And that's like a very big barrier of entry. And those are people, you know, who have the time and money to get a PhD. So, and I'm not saying that it's not important to have experts, you know, teach, but I do feel like it's such a hard barrier of entry, and there's benefit from like younger teachers too. Like, I'm more exposed to you know, the latest technologies. I'm not saying that all teachers don't do this. There's definitely teachers who like keep up to date with technology, but as you know, technology changes so fast,
Yes.
moves so fast. And when I was in class, like, they weren't really teaching the latest and greatest technologies. Like, they weren't teaching cloud computing as much or using the latest open source packages, but they were focusing on the methodologies, which is important as well. So I do feel like universities definitely can contribute, you know, to making basically the labor force as diverse as possible, because they're the ones molding that labor force themselves.
Oh, okay, nice. That's awesome. So, I know there are a whole lot of Latinas outside that will want to that are looking for a way to get into STEM and data science. And looking at your position, they want to know, do you have any advice for those Latinas trying to get into STEM and into data science?
Yeah, I have a few tips. So one, I think it's definitely create a network, and I've
Very
seen,
important.
yeah, definitely like the one we're on now, Women Who Code, women in data, specifically for Latinas. There's Latinas in tech, Techeria. And I feel like these communities are so important because I I felt like I started teaching at meetups conducted by these communities, and I felt more comfortable because I was in rooms where people looked more like me, or there were more women, and that gave me the confidence to then go into the more white dominated spaces, because I already had some practice and like maybe speaking about a subject matter thing, where I was more comfortable. But like I said earlier, there are allies in white dominated spaces, and you just have to find them. Like, look at who cheers you on, and you know, those are the people that you should latch on to. um and then share your wins online. Like, I feel like a lot of us like to be humble, right? Like, we don't want to brag about ourselves, but like, you should brag about yourselves. I know I think I saw your Twitter, like, you're very active on Twitter, and like, that's great. You know, I barely post on LinkedIn, but I shared on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago. I won a hackathon with a team that I led,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, and I was so proud of us. That was like the first time.
Mm.
Um, and then lastly, what I'm gonna say is, you know, after you've, like, let's say, built yourself up to where closer where you want to be, you should always like give back, right? Because there is lack of representation. So I feel like the more we give back, like the way that you're doing and I'm doing this, right? You know, it's important to see like representation. So I like to teach, I like to do resume reviews, I blog. So I think just the more representation, even though you feel like um you're not contributing to the space, or you feel like you're not good enough, like you are, and the more, the better. So
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. All right. So I would like to know where we can find more about you and your work.
yeah, if this, inspires you to want to talk to someone about how, to get into tech, or you have similar experiences to what I've just shared, I have a website, and you can email me directly, or it has a LinkedIn icon that you can click on. So just my full name, monicapuerto.com. And you can find some of my work there, and, to contact me. My email is open.
All right. So I really need to take more, like just get to hear you talk, get to learn from you. But I think this is the much we can take for now. And it was nice meeting you. It was nice talking to you, Monica. And for every other person that wants to connect with Women in Code, well, you can join us on all our socials. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, and you can join us at Women Who Code. And thank you, Monica, for joining us today.
Thank
Thank
you,
you very
Faith.
much.
Thank you so
All
much. It
right.
was nice meeting
Okay.
you.